Vielen Dank. Thank you very much. I feel very honored to be here. It's a real pleasure, honestly. I mean, to be able to share with you some thoughts and ideas and research, and I really appreciate your invitation and your interest in this work. So what I would like to do today, what I propose to you, is to share with you some thoughts about vision, cinema, and religion. And I will do this on the basis of several films that I have made in different moments of my life. These films have to do with so-called Afro-American religions. So religions that were formed in the Caribbean region and in Latin America as a result of the encounter. Encounter is perhaps too nice words for, defining this historical period. Let's say the encounter between indigenous cultures and African rituals brought by enslaved people and Catholicism, plus Spiritism, occultism, Orientalism, Kardasism. So these mixing of different traditions gave birth to a set of religions or cultural manifestations that we call Afro-American religions, right? So what I'm going to do is to share with you some comments on the relationship between vision, cinema, and religion in Afro-American religions with two main objectives. The first one is to reassess what it means to see, the very fact of seeing, looking and being looked at, right? And I will propose to oppose our way of understanding the act of seeing and being seen with the sense and the meaning of seeing in other cultural domains. And my argument is that the fact of using a camera, which is a technology of vision, the fact of bringing a camera, of using actively a camera during the fieldwork may allow you to better understand what it means to see for other people and what it means to be an image, right? So this is the second interesting point. First, what it means to see. Second, images, right? I teach anthropology of images, and we have an idea of what an image is and can be as a visual sign. But my argument is that the question about seeing brings you or leads you to the question about images, of what is an image, right? Image beyond the paradigm of representation, of the images as being signs or visual signs denoting, referring to something that they are not. What I will say is that this definition is not universal, not for all places at any time. In specific ethnographic sites, situations, images can be more than that. So, the third part of the talk will try to make a kind of recursive loop, and through the reflection about what it means to see and to be an image in Afro-American religions, let's think about what it means to see today for us in in this historical moment with artificial intelligence and VR and and dispositives of vision everywhere, and digital culture and all that. Because I think, and this is part of the interest of anthropology, that this displacement, the fact of reassessing what it means to see and to be an image in our world from the perspective of Afro-American religion, can be highly stimulating. So, I have made most of my films about rituals and religion. This is made in Guinea-Bissau in Africa, right? Is a film about the prophetic movement, and I just want to mention a sort of paradox, right? Cinema is the art of presence from the very beginning. You can only film what you have in front of you. I can now make a drawing of my daughter, perhaps, will be a very ugly one, but I can nevertheless. But I can't film her. Why? Because she's not here, right? This is why when photography and cinema appeared, they were defined as the true image in a way. Because if the photograph shows it, it is because it exists. The notion of evidence, right? Which comes from the word videre in Latin, that can be seen, right? So cinema and photography as the art of presence. If the camera can only record what exists out there. But then there is a paradox. It's from the very beginning, cinema was very interested in the invisible world. I mean, ethnographic cinema have been filmed rituals, possession rituals from the very beginning. Spirit photography is as old as photography itself. So why this interest in what cannot be seen if cinema can only film what exists materially in front of us with a corporeal presence? And so the response I would suggest is that the problem is that cinema is much more than that. The problem is from the very beginning. Cinema is not only a dispositive of presence. Cinema, perhaps, and sometimes through a kind of strange move, in a negative way, can also visualize, make it visible, what cannot directly be seen. My first example will be about the so-called cult of Maria Leonza. This is a Venezuelan religion, right? Religion is a very ambiguous word, but now let's go with it. That I studied. I started to study almost 20 years ago. So this religion, this cult, revolves around the figure of Maria Leonza. Maria Leonza is a female figure represented and imagined in very different ways, especially in two ways, right? As a naked woman raising a taper, this animal, and holding a pelvic bone, and as a white or mixed race queen. But there are countless of representations of Maria Leonza. Here you can see her with an Indian and with a black slave. There are countless representations of Maria Leonza and of the spirits that are part of her pantheon. It's very, I mean, you can find Gandhi there, you can find Ganesha, you can find Buddha. It's a very eclectic, I don't like the word syncretism, I would say very eclectic, very creative religion that has this capacity of bringing in new influences and turning them into a kind of permanent changing, but nevertheless coherent whole, right? So I studied this cult in Barcelona, in Venezuela, sorry, and in Barcelona, my native city. And I studied the role of images and the rituals in this religion, and also its presence on internet and in the world of art. Here you can see a collage of Maria Leonza in Barcelona. It's a montage, right? Here is, but has this interest of looking like a true image. It's talking about the fake, which is my current project about what is a fake image, not for us, but from a comparative perspective, right? So I will show you a sequence that I filmed almost 20 years ago, and it is a sequence in which I was very interested in understanding how is it possible that the same figure is represented in such different ways, as a black woman, as an Indian woman, as a mixed race woman, as a white woman. Why so? And so they told me, if you want to know that, you have to go to see a medium who can be possessed by the last person who saw her directly. Okay, so I went to see this medium. This medium was possessed by this person. This person described me the vision that he had. And then I go to a group of believers that perform a ritual during which this divinity descends into the body of a young woman. But there is one scene that I cannot film. And here lies the interest of the sequence that I'm going to show you. So we had a problem with the speakers. Speakers are not working. So this is why we were dealing with technology. So you will have to be very quiet because the speakers that are being used are the ones of the computer. So it's quite low, but there are subtitles, and I will give you the links because everything is online. So you will be able to see the sequence again if you want. Right? So this
quiere
is the person
conocer
who is
una
possessed by the
mujer tan
spirit.
linda, tan bella, de que las esculturas que han hecho con ella no es así. María Leonza es una mujer de cabello largo, muy culta, muy celestial. Ella habla con una tonalidad de voz muy fina. Ella habla muy pacíficamente, quiere la paz para el mundo, muy linda, con rasgos españoles, pero es hija de indio. Ella no es francesa, ella no es latina, ella es india, de ojos café, de piel clara, muy clara, y tiene un tributo muy lindo, y por eso que la respeto y la quiero bastante.
Amén, Señor, que así sea. ¿Y cómo tenía la piel María Leonza cuando la vio?
Blanca y muy transparente. Ella no quiere ser venerada por ninguna iglesia o por ningún sacerdote, sino por los mismos seres humanos de que llevan ese culto aquí en su corazón, porque así fue como se me presentó ella, como una persona tan linda, de sus cabellos largos.
Els creients del culte afirmen que, a part dels somnis, les visions i les aparicions, la manera de poder estar el més a prop possible de Maria Leonza és assistir a un ritual en què la deessa baixa a l'interior del cos d'un mèdium. A Baruta, als voltants de Caracas, Bàrbara és freqüentment posseïda per Maria Leonza. Aquest dia, Bàrbara és posseïda, en primer lloc, per Maria Leonza com a índia i, en segon lloc, per Maria Leonza com a reina. Se'ns va prohibir filmar la primera possessió i el moment de substitució espiritual que va portar a la segona identitat de Maria Leonza.
Cuando ella esté incorporando, dejamos de grabar hasta que la reina nos dé permiso, porque mientras si la reina no nos da permiso personalmente ella misma, no podemos grabar. ¿Oíste? Invocó la fuerza luz de conocimiento con la licencia y mi santa reina madre María Leonza. Reina poderosa del sol, que con fuerza y poder en este santo orden santo momento ante Dios todo corazón santísimo, invocando cuadro protector y espíritu guía, que sean ustedes los ministros santo orden santo momento, en el santo permiso para trabajar por Dios terrenal y por Dios espiritual en este santo orden sagrado momento en el nombre de Dios todopoderoso. Invocó la fuerza y el poder en este orden santo momento, de los cuatro vientos, de los cuatro puntos cardinales, de los cuatro elementos.
Okay, so here the person is possessed by the spirit of Maria Leonza. Two specificities of this sequence that you just saw. The first one, and this is, I think, one important aspect of ethnographic cinema, at least the way I understand it. The film makes explicit its condition of production. So the film made explicit the kind of negotiations, agreements, discussions that the anthropologists had to have in order to obtain the permission to make the film itself. So it's like, does the films includes its own making of in a way? So I say, I was allowed to do this, but I wasn't allowed to do another thing that I wanted to do. Or, for example, you see the person saying, okay, if we don't have the permission from the goddess, we can't film. right? And this is included into the film. So it's a kind of dialogical approach, which for me is part of the charming and the ethical commitment of anthropology itself. But there is more than that. There is an interdiction, there is a prohibition, there is an impossible shot. And this is important because in anthropology, as in life in general, interdiction, prohibitions, what we cannot do, this sort of negative anthropology, right, is most of the times more stimulating and allows us to understand more things rather than, okay, you can film it, do whatever you want, right? So this is the specificity of ethnographic cinema, that we don't film what we want, we don't film as we want. The way we film depends on the inner ontology of the context in which we are working. And one important point. So as you see, she says, okay, now we have to stop recording. So I put the black screen, right? And then this is another important fact. This is a lateral shot. It's not a frontal shot, as we say in cinema. So it's not just a frontal shot, right? So in the whole film, if you want to watch it, there are no frontal shots. Why not? Because it is strictly forbidden to make a frontal shot of someone possessed by a spirit. So if the camera is a person, right? And I am filming the camera, I cannot be just in front of the camera. This is forbidden. Why so? Because we, filmmakers, we like, frontal shots, right? Why is it? This prohibition was for me an opportunity to spark theoretical imagination and to develop and strengthen my fieldwork. The reason is the next. Within the cult of Maria Leonza, seeing is much more than receiving external impressions, which is what we could call the receptive, from the reception, conception of vision. Seeing is not about just receiving external impressions, like we all think, right? I open my eyes and I see what's in front of me. Seeing is especially about projecting internal impressions, projecting internal intentions. So seeing is like touching, right? When you see, you're in contact with what you are watching. And this is something that we find in a lot of different cultural contexts. This feature of the act of seeing, and I will insist on this later on, is reinforced when someone is possessed by a spirit, because the spirits are stronger, right? So someone possessed by a spirit, the strength of the spirit is going out through the eyes of the medium. What happens if I have a camera? Well, the lens of the camera is a mirror. Mirror in religion is an important element, right? So what does the mirror? It bounces. It makes that the energy goes back. And it goes back inverted. Because you know that the camera inverts. You know what I mean? Inverts light. This is why classical cameras used to have a small mirror inside, right? So this energy going out through the eyes can come back through to the medium, but inversed, which might be a danger for the person being possessed and for the spirit himself or herself. Well, this is interesting in terms of, anthropology of religion and visual anthropology, because it's about what it means to see in this specific context. And what I am trying to convey to you is that I could understand this thanks to the fact of holding a camera and thanks to a prohibition, not an allowance, a prohibition that I got during the film. Is it clear? Yeah. So from this, I wrote a paper, if you want. I'll try to go a little bit faster, which is called The Mirror Effect, Seeing and Being Seen in the Cult of Maria Leonza, where I explain and develop this specific moment where someone says, you can't film this. And afterwards, when you film, you have to do it that way. I would like to show you now another example to develop a little bit on this idea of of seeing as a mode of not receiving, I insist on this point, receiving external impression, but projecting internal intentions, right? There's a moral conception of seeing. This is a film that I made in Puerto Rico, also a long time ago. It's called Bea Wants to Know. It's a film about divination, right? There's a young student in Puerto Rico. Her life is not going well. Problem with the boyfriend, problems with money, problems with family. I mean, life is trancado, as they say. I mean, like if you have a kind of obstacle into the path of life, right? So she started going to see some mediums to see what happens with her life. This film is published in a journal that I truly recommend, which is called Journal of Anthropological Films. It gathers ethnographic films made by anthropologists. It's open access, it's peer-reviewed. It allows us, anthropologists making films, to have also an academic recognition of our work as proper publications that can count in our CVs and grants. So we have the OA, how to cite, is peer-reviewed. It's like an article, right? So I truly recommend you to consult this platform. So what I will show you now is a moment of this film called Bea Wants to Know. Bea has gone to see a medium called Pedro, and Pedro says that she has a problem with the evil eye. So you know the evil eye. Someone has looked at her with bad intention. El mal de ojo. It is the evil eye is perhaps the most clear example of this way of understanding, seeing as touching from afar. Seeing as touching. I mean, I look at you with bad intentions, right? And my gaze is like a trap. It literally catches you, right? So when there is this problem, which is most of the times linked to envy, right? We have a double process of depersonalization. I want to have something that you have. I want to be something that you are. So I have a problem with myself because I'm not the one I want to be. This is the problem with the envious person, right? I'm out of myself because I want to be you, right? So even in ontological terms, it's interesting. It's the process of someone who is not in the place he or she should be, right? So part of himself or herself is out of herself. But there is a problem also with the person affected by this evil eye, because part of this person has been captured, removed, attracted by the person who is in a way trying to catch him. So both are weak person, are suffering from a process of depersonalization, right? So what Bea has to do is to go through a ritual in order to be liberated from this evil eye. Well, there is one thing that actually is not seen, is not shown in this film, but in another film, because I felt guilty, is that I had to go through the same ritual before filming this, because I had to be clean myself, right? It's like, go to a hospital, have to be clean, right? So we have to be clean of bad influences, bad energies before filming. So then, long time after, I made a film that I can share with you afterwards as well, on what you have, the kind of rituals that you have to do in order to film the rituals that you want to film. But now you will see what happens with this ritual about Bea. Beatriz is the name of this student. And make attention at the very end of the ritual, because again, we have to do with negotiation on the field and the act of looking.
Tranquila, quieta.
Well, this is the day.
Ponme la aula. Todo bien. Corre, respira, mire. ¿Escucharon?
Tanto
Perfecto.
pensaba que se estaba muriendo, no sé. La limpieza de hoy, ¿cómo me va a ayudar a mí con eso que me pasó? ¿La limpieza de hoy o la de mañana? La de hoy es como una preparación para la de mañana.
Ahora mismo tú vas a ver lo que le va a pasar, por ejemplo, a las frutas y a la paloma. Lo que se va a hacer es elevar lo que hay, el atraso que hay, y tú lo vas a ver con tus propios ojos, dependiendo el muerto si desea que veas o si desea que no veas. En algunos casos yo acostumbraba a que la gente lo viese, pero el muerto dice que no es prudente que lo vea la persona porque va a jalar el atraso con la mirada. A la paloma le pueden pasar muchas cosas, que huele bien, que no pueda volar, que caiga muerta. El problema no es lo que le pase a la paloma, el problema es que te limpie y eleve lo que hay, que lo coja, lo que vienes arrastrando. No se han enfermado, no se han traído de silla de ruedas. Lo vamos a hacer aquí, no, ya dividido en dos partes. ¿Cuál es tu nombre?
Beatriz Lizardi Casiano.
Con el permiso del ángel guardián de Beatriz Lizardi Casiano. Maferefu Atana, Maferefu ya, Maferefu haga yo, Padre, le pido de que usted leve lo que viene arrastrando Beatriz y que ella vea con sus propios ojos lo que le va a pasar. Pues levanta tu cuello. Tú. Yo voy a poner aquí, lo voy a encender y tú vas a pasar por el medio hasta que se termine.
¿Me paro ahí?
Pasa.
¿En el fuego?
Sí, pasa. Pasa, pues, camina. Camina. No te va a pasar nada. Ok. Voy a dar vuelta, por favor. Puedes poner primero uno de tus pies encima de una de las frutas, despacio, por el otro.
¿Lo hizo?
No necesariamente encima. Voy a dar la vuelta. Voy a dar la vuelta. Ahora, puedes pisar primero con un pie y luego con el otro. Levántate. ¿Puede ver? No. Que lo grabe.
Okay, so this short fragment goes in the same direction as the one that I showed before, right? So there is a constant negotiation of what we might call the regimes of visibility, what can be seen, what can be filmed, and by whom, because we have a plurality of agents intervening in the scene. We have Bea, for sure, we have Pedro and his assistant, we have the filmmaker, but also we have a dead person who's the one intervening, trying to unlock the heavy light, and of course, the person who caused this damage to the person. So at the very beginning, Pedro says, okay, you will see in your like of inner eye what's going to happen to you, but actually at the very end, when there is this white dove, he asks to the other person, well, can she see it? No, she can't. And can he record it? Yes, he can record it. But then, because why she can't see the white dove? Well, it's very simple. Because if she sees the white dove, all the curse that she had, and which is now in the animal, will go back again to her. Because seeing is not just like a physiologic, organic mechanism of just seeing what's in front of us, like I'm doing right now, is a space of negotiation, is a crossroads, is a dispositive of contact between different agents. And this is a moral battlefield made of intentions, of will. You see what I mean? But then, and this is on the film, two things. When I tried to film the white dove flying up, I couldn't because the sky was too blue. And I was perhaps not a good filmmaker enough, right? But this is not the version for Pedro. I mean, the spirits didn't want it to be seen, what happened with the white dove. As we are in petit comité, as the French say, I can say that it just took the flyer out, right? And another thing, I asked to Pedro, okay, Bea cannot see the fly of the dove. It is forbidden, right? And how interesting is interdictions. But can she watch the film in which the dove flies up? Response, yes, she can, but wait a little bit. First, we remove the bad course. Then she looks at it. Why so? Because even filmic images retain part of the, let's say, moral intention of the agents being not represented, but connected to the image in a very intimate and consubstantial way. The image never being totally detached of what it denotes or represents. Part of the interest of ethnography is to establish long-lasting relationships with people, right? So I've made this film, Bea Wants to Know, in 2010, Can't How You Live. And last year I went to see Pedro again, so the medium, right? So we had in contact within the context of this ERC called visual trust. And then I will talk a little bit about the concept of visual trust. And who knows, perhaps when the ERC will be finished, I have the opportunity to share the final conclusions and films with you again. That would be a pleasure. And so I went to see him, and like an old memory, I said, okay, Pedro, do you have anything to do interesting? He said, yes, I have. It's urgent. I have to bless my images. They have to be blessed. Can I film it? Good. And it was relatively dark. And so I had a torch. And I activated my torch, but I made a big mistake. As it was a new equipment, and if you make films, you have to be very familiar with the equipment in order not to make mistakes. But what would we do without mistakes in anthropology, right? I pushed, and this is said at the beginning of the film, but nevertheless, I want to explain it to you. I pushed on a mode called the color mode. It's horrible. It's like a discotheque. So you have flashes of green, blue, yellow, red. And I said, okay, Pedro, I'm deeply sorry. He said, no, leave this. This is great. I mean, this is the way I see images when I bless them or when I'm in a ritual. Okay, then I thought, that's interesting. An experimental analogy, right? It is not exactly, I cannot see the world as he does when he's possessed. But randomly, we found a way of creating an analogy which prompts us to imagine other ways of seeing. And so I made a very short experimental ethnographic film called The Color of Spirits, which is about this specific mistake. I will show it to you, and then I will conclude with some final thoughts on the act of seeing and the power of images.
Antes, cuando he puesto las luces de colores, sí, me has dicho que te parecía interesante. ¿Por qué?
Sí, le da vida a la imagen.
¿Quieres entonces fumar del tabaco con los colores? ¿Qué te parece?
Como los colores y el tabaco, sí, debe ser interesante.
Vamos a ver.
Sí.
Vamos a hacer ese experimento. ¿Cuál? ¿Este te parece bien?
¿Ah? Sí, seguro. Excelente. Ok, mamá. Permiso, dele Juan. Su permiso en bongo. Yo tengo ahí una preparación. No sé si acepten que la filmen. Okay.
¿Podemos pedir permiso luego?
Sí. Pido que se abran las puertas para Javier el Canal, que lo que está haciendo sea fructífero para él, para esta casa. Que usted nos dé la bendición, mamá. Si observa, está cambiando su rostro. con calma te vas a dar cuenta que va cambiando el rostro, ese producto de la espiritualidad que tiene ella.
El rostro de la imagen está cambiando.
Sí. Se pone en evidencia de que detrás de ella hay una tribu. Lo mismo ocurre con el indio ojo de águila.
¿Tú ves cómo el rostro del indio está cambiando?
¿Vamos a hacer la prueba?
Vamos.
Déjame botar la ceniza. Observa. Bueno, al indio de la casa, este es un indio vigilante que cuida. Cambia el color de sus ojos. ¿Quieres que le echamos humo a Santa Bárbara? Déjame echar la ceniza. Con su permiso, mamá. Dice que ayuda a su dueña, que le dé fuerza, que supere la enfermedad. Acompáñela. ¿Quieres que te enseñe? A la preparación que tengo.
De acuerdo.
Papá, con su permiso, vamos a enseñarle. Con su permiso, papá.
Y eso no todo el mundo lo puede ver, ¿verdad?
No. No. se han dejado ver por ti, pero nunca lo han hecho con nadie.
So two short comments on this film before concluding, and I'm sorry if I'm being too long. First, again, a negotiation of regimes of visibility. The very beginning, he says, okay, I have an altar here, but I'm not sure whether they will accept you to film it or not. And I say, well, we can ask permission at the end of the film. And it is while I'm filming that actually the negotiation between Pedro, me, and the spirit is being done, right? And at the end of the film, he says, okay, you can film it. But you can film it means that you can see it. So the film expands the visibility of the object being filmed, right? And Pedro knows that. This is part of the ethnography. We are constantly negotiating what we can see, record, and how, right? So this is one point. Another point is this idea of the experimental analogy, right? It is clear that here it is an example of what in the Visual Trust project we call an example of intensification. Intensifications mean that images, we look at images, but we relate with images and through images in very different ways, right? And images are not always just the picture on the wall that we can see. We wear images, we have sometimes images on our skin, we can eat images, right?
Well, David.
Right? And so,
over.
I don't know what's that. Someone has it's not muted. And because I hear sounds and voices, and I was thinking it was just me. In a way, I'm disappointed. The important thing. So images, here we have an example of intensification. So through the relationship with images and through the tobacco intensifies images. So images cease to be mere representations, if they were, and they become what Mitchell would call living signs. That is more than images. Images have always, at least potentially, the capacity to be something else, something more perhaps. That is, to become, in a way, through this game of mimesis, to quote Michael Tausig, right? To become what they represent. That is, to cease to be images, to, in a way, fusion, merge with their own referent. And this is exactly what happened here. It is through tobacco, it is through the relationship with image, that it is not the image of an Indian. It is a paradoxical ontological object, a sort of contradictory one, which is, yes, an image, but also the Indian himself. You see what I mean? And I would say that there is not just the tobacco playing a role in this process. It is also the camera and the lights. All these elements contribute in this process of intensification, which makes the image become what it represents, thus ceasing to be just an image and becoming a person, or almost a person, or a sort of person. And I would say that this is the specificity of religious images. And we know this since Lévi-Bruhl and the concept of participation, right? This is the image participate to what is representing. Right? And I would say that this feature of the religious image is in, at least potentially, a feature that all images have. When you touch the image of someone that you love and whose photograph is in your pocket, right? Why do you have the photograph in your pocket, in your wallet? Because you want to remember that person? This means that you need the photograph to remember the person of your family, the face of your friend. Is that because you want to be close to them, right? It's because you want to be in contact with them. I'm not saying that they are persons, but that there is a relationship of intimacy, of consubstantiality between this image and what this image represents. And here we see this feature in the sort of miracle that happens, the cinematic miracle, that in front of the camera, images merge with their own reference. And when Pedro says, and I will be finishing now because I'm still being too.
Good meal, man.
When
Won't cook.
Pedro says, the face of the image is changing. And when he says, the color of the image is changing, he's not saying that it is changing because of the torch. It would change anyway, because it is being intensified. What the torch does is to give us the possibility, this is my theory, right? For us to imagine what a living image is. So I would conclude here with just some final remarks. First one, so this is The Color of a Spirit, this is the film that I just showed, right? And I went to Puerto Rico again to show it to Pedro, and this was very interesting, and we were discussing about it, and we were recording it, and we were playing, even with artificial intelligence, was very interesting. I think it's part of this going back and forth is part of the ethnographic commitment, right? So what I have tried to convey in this talk is that there are, I mean, we can distinguish two main ways of understanding the act of seeing and being seen, right? Seeing as just receiving external impressions, or seeing as projecting internal intentions, right? Okay, we can say since modernity, we conceive seeing as receiving external impressions. And here is the metaphor of the screen, right? And the cinema, the eye of a kind of a screen on which impressions are projected. Very photographic metaphor, by the way, right? And we can say, okay, but in religion, it is otherwise because, well, at least Descartes said, regarder, c'est toucher de loin. That is, seeing is touching from afar. The thing is touching, right? So, but this idea that we can, there's the base of the mal de ojo, the evil eye, and then we can see in a lot of films, for example, this film called The Man with the X-Rays Eyes. I don't know if you know this film. It's a very interesting film of a person who actually touches what he sees, right? We may consider that in one way or another, yes, for us also, seeing is a way of touching from afar, right? There are gazes that affects us, even physically, right? That perhaps seeing is an action, is a way of intervening the world. I don't want to say that we're doing evil eye all the time, but that this ethnographic example prompts us to imagine that perhaps we have to assume a radical relational approach to the act of seeing. That the idea of the seeing is touching from afar, it allows us to understand a lot of things that are actually happening in our day-to-day life, right? Or if I look right on in the eyes of someone else, it has even a physical impact on you, right? And there are gazes that can be blessing or that may hurt. So that perhaps seeing is affecting what one sees. And this is very clear in these examples, but perhaps the evil eye in the social network, for example, right? The dispositives of vision, vision as a form of caring. Caring is about touching, is about being in contact, right? And this is the main idea of this notion of seeing, that we can observe in these Afro-American religions. But I think that it's stimulating to think that in a way, yes, seeing is touching. This is an experiment on VR that I did. I am the one on the right? That actually you could see the world from the point of view of another person, and you could touch actually yourself, right? Well, I will go through it. And then the second idea, do images see? All images may overcome their own status of images. Yeah. Miracles as form of unveiling. And this is interesting as well, right? Here we had this sort of miracle that an image, the image of the Indian became the Indian himself, right? But instead of being the exception, the interest of the miracle is that it makes explicit what is always plain, what is always there, at least potentially. And this is that images can overcome their own condition and become more than image. And actually, this is what happens all the day, even with us, right? The automaton is in a way the living image, right? We can see images, but in a way, an artist understood this very well. Images can look at us as well, right? It's an artist who played the world from the point of view of images, right? Artificial intelligence, we have these visual beings everywhere. These are images made by artificial intelligence from a website called This Person Does Not Exist, right? Which is a very interesting website that we are working on in the project of Visual Trust. And so if you are doing training with a sort of digital coach who does not exist in a way, I mean, it is not the relationship of a person and an object, a person and an image understood as object. It is, the image is a living person, right? Well, this is enchanted technology. We know this concept since a lot of time. And here there is the mirror again. This is why I selected this image, right? Because here again, we have this mirror and seeing oneself as an image, an image as a living person. Well, this is a sort of technological miracle perhaps as well. The smart house is something more magical than that. It's true that, as Magritte would say, ceci n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe. This is the image of a pipe, right? There are two different things. But at some moment, the image of a pipe perhaps smells like smoke. Thank you very much.